They say every virtue taken to its extreme becomes a vice. Justice is understandable, especially when you have been slighted. However, if it fully consumes your life to the point there is nothing left, it becomes a problem. Once you have fulfilled your revenge, what do you have left? That's the only thing keeping your spirit burning. Then you'll be running on embers when it's finally finished. Well, if you're lucky enough to kill the poor bastard, that is. Otherwise, you get consumed by the flames. Who all in the cursed apple is willing to roll the dice and believe they'll finally get sweet, sweet revenge? Welcome to the Grey Wall Brokerage. Everyone works for us eventually. Any patronage is appreciated, so feel free to drop a like, share, or subscribe. Feel free to suggest any subjects you would like to see in the comments below. How far would you be willing to go to exact retribution against your fallen foe? In the case of the sheriff from Macomb, quite a way. The distance between the two is rather large. Regardless of where you're from, the big city accepts you nonetheless. Holiday herself says that she hates the place, and I can't exactly blame her. The big city has got big benefits, but it's got big downsides too. Not quite as close-knit as the countryside. You know, that's probably why she's trying so hard to extract bloody revenge, especially when you lose a sister. Hard to not when you've seen gristled bodies of family friends you've known since you were young.
A murder of crows suspected to be the infamous serial killer known as the Troubadour was spotted flying over Champaign-Urbana today. Could he be flying to New York?
I read about what happened in Macomb. Absolutely ghoulish.
I really don't want to talk about it.
Understandable. I just hope you catch whoever's responsible.
I'm not gonna catch him. I'm gonna kill him.
How much do you think she hates herself as much as the Troubadour? If only I was a little stronger, then my sister might still be alive. I bet it's eating away at her soul. Now, I'm not saying I blame her, mind you, but do be careful not to be consumed by darkness when staring into it for so long. 6 months isn't too long in the grand scheme of things. You could switch jobs, move town, start a war, end a war, but at the end of the day, it barely even encompasses a fraction of how long you'll be alive. It just makes you wonder how much of her life will be ruled by her anger, and if it'll ever subside. Seeing her so far, odds are she'll probably find some amount of peace. If she wins the ritual, that is. Calling the people participating in the ritual good is nondescript and not always accurate. Troubled is better as a moniker, but some aren't just looking out for themselves. Take the gargoyle, for instance. She joined out of the goodness of her heart and only ever wants to make people smile and help others, yet she can't even get through Holiday's cold outer shell. Sometimes, anyway.
Are you angry, like, all the time?
It's hard not to be.
You know, my sister told me that when I get mad, I should take a deep breath and count to 4. It doesn't always work, but sometimes it does.
My sister's dead.
Yeah, I'm going to shut up now.
I heard about you on the news.
Thought you were from Illinois.
I am. Turns out lots of people are interested in crime-fighting gargoyles.
Were they saying nice things at least?
Ivy, it's hard not to say nice things about you.
People are just so tricky that way. She gets some news through the grapevine in Macomb, so she knows of what's going on in Spanish Harlem, yet sometimes her admiration ices over her warm heart even then. Holiday has lived a hell of a life already. By ordinary people's standards, anyway. She's already been divorced and is the descendant of Doc Holliday from the OK Corral. Seems like she was pretty content with just being a sheriff in a small town, but she can really go the distance if she's motivated to do so. I'm kind of surprised that she's still going, if I'm being honest. That's not me dissing her motivation. That's surprising because she hasn't collapsed from exhaustion yet. If she wants to not die before, during, or after the ritual, she should probably heed some advice from the Djinn's bodyguard.
You're blinded by hatred, Holiday.
I'll keep that in mind.
That's the problem, you won't. And when you cling to that path, you will die because of it.
Thanks for the advice.
One doesn't become the bodyguard for a diplomat without some amount of experience, and he certainly doesn't look like a spring chicken. Perhaps someone he knew had a similar fate? Hard to say, we can go into the man on a later date. One must wonder how much she understands the long shadow of her ancestor. The OK Corral shootout was a thing to behold for sure. Perhaps the chip on her shoulder that caused her to enter the ritual was because of him? Obviously she was a small-town sheriff, and I don't think she actively chased after the legend, but she is ravenous in trying to kill the Troubadour. She might not want to compare herself to him, but when you've heard the tale of the lawbringer Doc Holliday for your entire life, you can't help but think. It certainly hasn't stopped others from thinking of the man.
Holiday, I don't suppose you're related to...
Yeah.
Long Shadow.
Try not to think about it.
Let's make him proud.
Think about a noble man who rose to the challenge for his friends, a noble man who brought justice to the wicked, a noble man who did what was needed when the chips were down. If If she can't get the troubadour kicking and screaming, would she be qualified to call herself a sheriff, let alone inherit Doc's revolver?
Your revolver is a thing to behold.
Thanks. It belonged to my grandfather.
I don't suppose it's for sale.
You're damn right it's not.
I wouldn't respect myself if I didn't ask.
It's because it affects her so closely that she will need to tear out the bastard's heart. Either she'll die in the process, or the troubadour's head will be on a platter. He could very easily turn back around on her, and be a tragic end if Drifter is to be believed. I doubt he would lie about the ferocity of his fellow serial killer, but it is curious that he tells Holiday to be careful in some respect.
McCall matters a lot to you, but to him it was just a fun time that'll get lost in the ocean of memory. But if you find him, if he knows he got his hooks in you, you're gonna be his hobby.
If anyone knows about committing atrocities, it's Drifter. He'd probably consider that a compliment, especially with how much the man likes tormenting others for shits and giggles. He's a deeply, deeply disturbed man. While Grey Talon is grieving over the loss of his family, Drifter says if it was him, he'd have made it very personal.
Did you do it? Wesley, if I was gonna murder your grandkids, we both know I would have tied you down and made you watch. I'm going to kill you. Oh, you only gonna try. But it ain't gonna be today. You need me.
In comparison to Holiday's rather recent grappling with what it means to be without family, Grey Talon has had many, many decades to consider his relationship with his kin and what they mean to him.
I know that look in your eyes. Who did they take from you?
My son. My daughter-in-law. My grandkids.
I hope today we both find peace.
Indeed.
I'm sure he has plenty of regrets and was optimistic as soon as he retired to spend more time with them. He lived one hell of a life and understood his place was with them at the end of the day. It must have been devastating to see it all crumble to dust right in front of you. So he responded the only way he knew how, with pure, unmitigated violence. Holiday, if you asked her, would tell you that she wouldn't be able to rest without justice being done. Grey Talon would say something similar, but the difference is that he doesn't have a tomorrow in the same way Holiday does. His life was already entering his twilight era. Others would take his place. He had picked out a successor to be his place in the organization. His future was at home with his family until he eventually died, surrounded by those he cared about most. Holiday, on the other hand, has the majority of her life ahead of her. She's been through quite a bit, seeing as she's divorced, but she could theoretically forget about all of this and leave it to somebody else like the US government to follow the trail she set up and go back home. She won't, but she has that as an option if she decides she can live in constant guilt, or has enough alcohol to forget said guilt. Talon is at the end of his rope, but is making one final desperate attempt because he has nothing left. Well, not nothing, but it sure as hell feels like it when you need to bury your grandchildren. His wife is still around, and sure as hell would not approve of him trying to exact bloody revenge or breaking himself in the process.
I'm excited to get a front row seat to you throwing your life away for revenge.
It's not throwing it away if they die.
I'm sure your wife will see it the same way.
Shut up.
If it's any consolation for him, the Friends of Humanity is a significantly easier target than the Troubadour. They're right there in the open, so it's not a question of will I ever reach my target, and more of how best can I. His time is limited, so being a public advocate against them is rather hard, especially with their size and influence. Public speaking isn't ideal when he's as old as he is. The founder of the monster-slaying Baxter Society would have a large amount of sway in public opinion, but when seconds count, the police are only minutes away. Could you trust them to keep up the fight while you're still alive? Even finish it? Violence was the easy path, but also the only viable one left to him. The best he can do for now is do what he's always done. Kill monsters. God save you if you try to get in his way.
Trap them in your ice dome and leave the rest to me.
I create shelter for those in need of aid.
Today you create a killing floor for me. Do you understand?
Talon,
Do you understand?
Yes.
When blood runs red, do you still see clearly? Can you think rationally? Or is that exactly what Wesley is doing? If he only has himself in this entire operation, then if he fails, then no one else gets hurt. No one else would have a broken home going through these dangerous waters. If he dies trying, at least it'll be for the sake of his family. At least then he will have no one else to disappoint. What is a more terrifying position for the man? Dying before his revenge is finally set out, or once again disappointing others relying upon him? Once again, his wife is still around, but Talon has never been one to think about what he has right now. It's highly likely that if he doesn't do this, he'll die battered and broken. Or even more than he already is. At least this might be some recompense before he finally bites the big one. However, Vindicta has already died once herself, so perhaps she truly understands what the man is going through, even when he wants to be solitary and not fail anyone else. His successes in life still come back to lift him up, or haunt him even more. Outside of her revenge, she doesn't have much going on for her, and it seems as though her spirit is very much tied to achieving it. Regrets are what tether her to this plane, so she might finally get to rest once the friends of humanity are dead and buried.
If all goes well today, this might be the last time we see each other.
I know.
That makes me sad.
Me too.
Going back to the gargoyle I mentioned before, she is a very, very cheery person who only wants to uplift her friends and help them live their best lives. Her intentions have been well documented if you even give a cursory glance at what she's aiming for. The sheriff has heard of her in Macomb, that when she tries to give a helping hand to the fellow flyer, she patently rejects it on its face.
Together, we're gonna own the skies.
There is no we.
I distinctly see two of us.
Ivy, we're not friends. We are not going on some adventure. When the ritual is over, you will go home to a family, and I will be counting the bodies of the dead. So let's just stay focused on the task at hand.
Vindicta doesn't want to be happy. Misery loves company, as they say. Nuances for cowards, and if you aren't trying to, with every fiber of your being, exacting your revenge, you're nothing but a poser. I'm not saying Vindicta should be turning around and embracing what Ivy is saying with a smile, but I am saying that she doesn't need to be nasty when Ivy is clearly only trying to help. You're both in this together. Why do you see the need to spit venom? One can't help but make comparisons to the target of her ire, the Friends of Humanity. No doubt John Haythorne was a rather misled man slaughtering the innocent, yet she is following an incredibly similar path. Of course, the Friends of Humanity do not have their hands clean, their misdeeds are well known, but let me put it this way, Vindicta has a second chance at life to do whatever she wishes, yet she adamantly ties herself to revenge and nothing outside of it. Cleaning up a corrupt organization is admirable, but outside of that, she has nothing. Hatred outlives the hateful. She doesn't want for anything outside of what will sustain her anger. With how close she is to Grey Talon, how much he cares about her, would he not invite her over for dinner if she was in the area? Why not organize a place for her to stay?
Wesley, I just wanted you to know that if I had a father like you, I don't think I would have died.
You deserved better. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I got to meet you.
Could she not have become his daughter in function and live with his family in either personal or professional life? With how much weight Wesley has in the Baxter Society, you could easily ask him for a place to stay there, and it would not be that much of an ask. She respects the man a lot, and he feels confident enough to talk to her about Calico's betrayal, and that he still holds her in high regard despite it. For a quick spot of context, Grey Talon is one of the founders of the Baxter Society, whose express purpose is to hunt monsters that threaten humanity. One of their members, Calico, decided that monster hunting didn't pay the bills well enough, so instead she went into mercenary work as an assassin. Her most notable hit is against Aaron Fairfax, and we'll get into that a bit later. The important bit is that somebody turning into a theoretical monster when you're meant to hunt actual ones stings a little. You don't talk to people you aren't close with about the turmoil within an organization you founded.
You're one of Wesley's friends, right? He spoke highly of you. You can be disappointed in someone and still hold them in esteem.
Wesley, for all of his faults of not being a great father, cares a lot about Vindicta. She's not some random person on the street, and I would find it incredibly dubious that he would never lend her a helping hand. It could just be that she didn't want to take it. Let's go back to the Salem witch trials of yore. Hypothetically, let's say you knew of what would happen afterwards. One of your fellow innocents in the slaughter would be revived centuries later. What kind of life would you want that child to lead? Ideally, it wouldn't involve both revenge against those who wronged you, in addition to appreciating the new lease on life it gives you. Kelvin more or less has it that the second chance is a gift that allows you opportunities to clean up loose ends and do things you couldn't before. Yet Vindicta only ever sees revenge. She was given a second chance at life, and the only thing that she will ever know is blood, death, and retribution. Of course, some specters are bound by this hatred and their life ends when their hatred turns from an inferno to a smolder. Even then, she should still have appreciation for those who are helping her in any way, shape, or form. I'm not trying to imply that she shouldn't or can't be angry, but there is more to life than hatred. When you've been dead for over 200 years and alive for 50 afterwards, it's kind of surprising that the only thing on your mind still is murder. She is a zealot and intends to die a martyr, to the point it's the only thing left for her.
How are you adjusting?
It's strange returning after being gone for a year.
Try 200.
Oh, by no means was I trying to draw comparisons. How long did it take you to make sense of the modern world?
A while. People always ask me about adapting to technology, but really the language was the hardest. For a while I felt lost, but I was able to find my way and my purpose.
A lust for murder isn't purpose, Vindicta.
That's not for you to say, Kelvin. You weren't there.
With all of the critiques of their suicidal lifestyles, I do want to mark a difference here because of Billy. Billy is an angry anarchist with a goat head and constantly talks about how much he's doing good for society and talking about the ills of the world, man. The main issue is that talking is all that he does. Vindicta and Talon both call him out for his lack of agency and morals. He talks the talk, but doesn't walk the walk.
Billy, you scream of the ills of the world, but do nothing to change them.
Lady, I wake people up, I speak truth to power. What the hell do you do other than walk around Central Park barefoot?
I'm systematically murdering the bloodline of a judge that used his power to sentence innocent women to death. And in the process, am dismantling an extremist neo-political movement. But do tell me about how important your soapbox is.
The ritual's starting.
Indeed.
Old-timers like you don't know how hard it is in the real world. You're just sitting around, smoking cigars and getting drunk on nostalgia.
Clearly.
You think being smug makes you better than me?
The fact that I didn't turn my head into a goat makes me better than you.
There it is! I knew that you were biased against me from the beginning.
You want to act like a jackass, that's your business. But you don't get to be indignant when I point it out. Now shut up and try not to die.
There is a marked difference between action and inaction, especially with Billy having plenty of bark but no sense of bite. You may not admire Talon and Vindicta for their pursuits of murder, but you should still respect the amount of effort it takes to truly commit to such a path. It's not all sunshine and rainbows here. Billy is very much doing this because he likes putting on the responsibility of the world being shit onto other people. Everyone else was against him from the very beginning, so he's just in destroying the world. However, he's doing destruction for the sake of destruction. Talon and Vindicta have a much simpler end goal in mind, in that, while they are doing reprehensible things, they are doing them for a damn good reason. It's not fun in games to do revenge, but you have to do it anyway. Vindicta is hinted at to still be guilty about every life she takes in some fashion.
Vindicta, how many lives have you claimed?
Do they weigh on you?
If so, rest and purge yourself of that nagging sense of guilt. If not, take a moment
to revel
in the fruits of your labor.
As said, with Talon's wife being around, perhaps the reason why he's distancing himself from her is that he knows it'll soften his heart too much. If he looks at her face and sees the pain she's in, he won't be able to kill the bastards that took his family away from him. Punishment needs to be given out, regardless if others see it as just. If things continue as is, more tragedies will occur, so they need to become evil to smite it down. While they were not strong enough to prevent it, they can make it up to those lost to ensure it won't happen again. This is their self-imposed purgatory. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. Credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls, who know neither victory nor defeat. Such paths are not easily chosen. Aaron Fairfax, aka Pocket, shows this firsthand. Calico's attempted assassination didn't exactly go well for anyone. It was messy and Pocket was extremely close to dying and miraculously survived. That leaves the ritual as a rather tempting offer. take revenge on those responsible, Calico and your father, and rule what is rightfully yours, the leaders of the occult industrial complex Fairfax Industries. Yeah, with that being said, Father Fairfax is very obviously supportive of this behavior, and Pocket knows it.
I think the worst part is that my father would be more proud of me if I was trying to kill him rather than trying to stop him.
Or is the family business, so what father would disregard such patent enthusiasm for it? Why not make that the new ritual of choosing the new head of Fairfax Industries? An attempted assassination? Whether that's a good or bad end for the homeless vagrant is a good question. I'm sure some part of Pocket is screaming about how wrong this entire thing is, yet why do people fight for revenge? The dead don't come back to life. Yes, I know Vindicta revived, but that's a one-off that's not easily replicable, and she clearly was warped by the revival. Both Grey, Talon, and Holiday both understand what revenge is for.
Can I give you an unsolicited word of advice, Holiday?
Why not?
People are going to tell you that there's a difference between justice and revenge. That you will dishonor the dead by stooping to their killer's level. Ignore them. Revenge isn't for the dead. It's for the living.
I knew I liked you.
The dead can't reap the rewards of extracting bloody justice with your own hands. However, there is solace for the living in knowing that evil has been removed from the world. There are no more victims of the same villains as you cut it off at its source. Pocket seems to have the misunderstanding that when you murder, you're just as bad as all other murderers. However, there's a more pressing question. Does Maximilian Fairfax have regrets like that? It's something you'll see every now and then. Hey Doc, I get the feeling that when I see some people I dislike, I just want to smash their head in. I don't, but the feeling is there nonetheless. Is there something wrong with me? Well, the thing is, if there really was something wrong with you, you wouldn't be asking. It shows you're thinking through what you're doing. You aren't just accepting it as it is. There is enough foresight to your actions that you aren't doing the spur of the moment. If you invite violence into your house, others will seek to let it inside. Are you going to tell me that Daddy Dearest and his lead engineer really think about things like that? Do they worry about what they will turn into? Do they have concerns about if they are moral in their actions? Or are they all self-centered, egotistical maniacs who want to raise the world asunder if it means they benefit regardless of the cost? As long as you never lose sight of that, are you going to tell me that Fairfax would be worse off? Oh, excuse me, I misspoke a little. McGinnis does have thoughts about that, mainly ones involving dying terribly as a result of her own hubris.
How long you think you'll stay with Fairfax Industries?
I don't know. Probably until I get bored or I open some portal to hell and die.
Pretty specific.
I think about it a lot.
Yeah, no worries, Pocket. You're just trying to stop the occult industrial complex whose lead engineer believes she's going to open a portal to hell and die. You know, normal human thoughts for upstanding people. Perhaps Pocket just needs some friends to assuage these fears. Or maybe that's a question for after you summon an Elder God. There are a few others who are trying to revenge in some aspect, such as Seven, but his version of revenge is superseded by him attempting to become God. So, you know, revenge is a nice box to tick after ruining the world or made in your own image. I wonder what the patrons have in store for them at the end of it all. That's all the brokerage has to say about the matter for now. Come back later and perhaps I'll have more to tell. The truth can be a rather fickle mistress when it wants to be. I appreciate you swinging by. If you want to hear more, leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment talking about who you want to see next. Thank you for swinging by, and may we meet again.